Susie wanted to act like a spoiled, entitled, bratty gremlin, then I would treat her like one. Because this was no longer just about the watch. This was about being the man my dad raised me to be. I grabbed my keys. Karen started panicking, asking where I was going. I didn't answer. I drove straight to the pawn shop in town, there's only one, and asked about the watch. The owner, James, knew me from my regular visits to look at fishing gear. Yeah, someone brought in an old Omega yesterday, he said. Young girl, maybe 16 or so. My heart sank when he told me he'd already sold it to a collector who'd been looking for that exact model. I explained the situation, that it was a family heirloom stolen from me by my stepdaughter. James seemed genuinely sorry and offered to call the buyer to see if they'd return it. I spent the next hour pacing around the shop while James made calls. Finally, he came back with some news the buyer would return it, but wanted triple what he'd paid. It was nearly $1,200, money we didn't have just lying around. I immediately withdrew it from my emergency savings and paid James to arrange the exchange. When I got home, Karen and Susie were acting like nothing had happened. They were watching TV and eating ice cream. Karen looked surprised to see me. "Did you calm down?" she asked casually. I didn't answer directly. "I found out where the watch went. I'm getting it back tomorrow." Susie rolled her eyes. "It's just a stupid watch." I looked at her for a long moment. "That watch survived World War II on my grandfather's wrist. My father wore it every day of his adult life. It's the only thing I have left of him." "Whatever," Susie muttered. Karen jumped in. "I think you're overreacting. It's not like she sold your kidney. It's just an object." I realized then that they would never understand. They didn't want to understand. I'd spent 11 years trying to be a father to someone who saw me as nothing more than a wallet and a punching bag, and my wife had enabled it every step of the way. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I'd let things slide for the sake of peace. The time Susie accidentally deleted a work presentation I'd spent weeks on. The time she told her school I'd been drinking when I picked her up, completely untrue, which led to an embarrassing conversation with her principal. The time she purposely knocked over my dad's urn, but claimed it was the cat. In the morning, I called in sick to work and went back to the pawn shop. James had the watch waiting for me. I put it on immediately, feeling the familiar weight on my wrist. It was like having a small piece of my dad back. "Family trouble?" James asked sympathetically. "Something like that," I replied. When I got home, I found Karen going through my drawers. She jumped when I entered the room. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Looking for the receipt," she admitted. "I wanted to see how much money you wasted on that watch." I showed her my wrist. "It wasn't a waste, and I'm not sure why you're putting wasted in air quotes. It was stolen from me, and I got it back." Karen started the usual argument about how I cared more about things than people, how I was being insensitive to Susie's feelings, how I needed to try harder to connect with her. I'd heard it all before, but this time, I didn't just take it. I didn't apologize or promise to do better. Instead, I asked her a question that had been building for years. "Karen, do you actually want me to be Susie's father, or just her ATM?" She looked shocked. "What are you talking about? Of course I want you to be her father." "No," I said calmly. "You want me to provide for her. You want me to drive her places and pay for things. But the moment I try to parent her, to teach her right from wrong, or give her consequences for bad behavior, I'm suddenly just the stepdad who needs to know my place." Karen didn't have a response to this. She just stared at me. "I've been thinking a lot," I continued. "If Susie wants to act like an entitled brat who has no respect for other people's property or feelings, then maybe it's time I show her what real consequences look like." "What's that supposed to mean?" Karen demanded. I smiled. "It means things are going to change around here, starting now." That evening, I called a family meeting. Both Karen and Susie looked annoyed but showed up at the dining room table. I laid out 3 new house rules. First, Susie's allowance was suspended indefinitely. If she wanted money, she could earn it by doing chores or getting a part-time job like other teenagers. Second, both Karen and Susie would start contributing to household chores. I was no longer going to work all day, then come home to cook and clean while they watched TV. Third, we would all be attending family therapy. This wasn't negotiable. Karen immediately started protesting, saying I had no right to make these decisions unilaterally. Susie just laughed and said, "Yeah,